and welcome to my channel. It is officially October, which means it's spooky season. Halloween is right around the corner, and I'm here to help you curate your horror movie watch list. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 31 found footage horror movies that you can watch throughout the month of October to celebrate Halloween. So the first movie we're going to talk about is the quintessential found footage horror movie that changed the game, The Blair Witch Project. So the story centers on 3 student filmmakers who go into the woods in search of a witch, and they find her. Next is The Last Broadcast. This actually predates The Blair Witch Project by a year. So this is about 2 cable access television crew members who venture into the woods trying to capture the Jersey Devil. Days later, one of the filmmakers reemerges and the other one is missing. And so the story centers around the mystery about that and what actually happened to this other filmmaker in the woods. Then we have the Poughkeepsie Tapes, which came out in 2007. This is a little darker than the previous 2 movies mentioned. This focuses on a serial killer and the tapes that he created during his crimes. It feels very voyeuristic because you're put in the POV of the serial killer as he's spying on his soon-to-be victims from their closet. This one isn't particularly a favorite of mine, and I find it hard to watch because of those moments, but I do think it's worth including on this list because I know some people do love it. Then we have VHS. This came out in 2012 and it's basically a horror anthology centered around VHS tapes. So the central story that wraps around everything is a group of people who are pretty shitty. They make videotapes where they're pranking people. This group of people enter this desolate house to rob it, and they discover VHS tapes and they begin to watch them. And what you are watching is those VHS tapes. So there's different stories. One of them focuses on a couple who are on their honeymoon and they begin being stalked by this mysterious stranger in their hotel room. That's actually my favorite one. It's from Ty West, and it has one of the most shocking moments I've ever seen. It was so unexpected and well done. Of course, I have to mention VHS 94, which is the latest installment in the VHS series. It focuses on 5 new tapes, and it's centered around this SWAT team who encounter this house that is filled with VHS tapes. The tapes are belonging to a sinister cult. Some of the stories in this one were hit or miss, but overall really fun. The standout of this one is the Ratman or Ratma story, where this news reporter is investigating this mysterious town legend of this creature that lives in the sewers, and she goes down into the sewers and she discovers this whole world down there, and it's terrifying but also silly, and it's just so much fun. The next film we're going to talk about is The Taking of Deborah Logan. So this film is presented as a documentary on a woman named Deborah Logan who is suffering from Alzheimer's, and the documentary starts as an examination of her symptoms and her life, but it quickly changes when they realize that something sinister is going on with Deborah, and it's absolutely terrifying. Then we have The Last Exorcism from 2010. I feel like this movie is overlooked a lot, and I really love it. I think it's a well-made religious horror movie / found footage film, and it centers on this pastor who is pretty widely known for doing exorcisms, and the thing is, he doesn't actually believe in them. And so this documentary, he is showing how he fakes the exorcisms and kind of debunking it. And in doing so, he really encounters this girl who truly is possessed or experiencing paranormal activity, and he is pulled into it and he has to really help her. He's a reverend, not a pastor. Sorry, I have to correct myself. And also the performance from Ashley Bell is insane. Then we have Paranormal Activity from 2007. This movie scared the crap out of me when I initially saw it in theaters because it played on all of my fears of having a haunted house. It centers on this couple who are experiencing paranormal activity in their home. The boyfriend decides to set up cameras around their home and he begins to document the situation. And the stuff that you see happen is just really frightening, and we see the paranormal activity increase in how dangerous it is. It becomes more increasingly violent over the series of the film, and it's just terrifying. Next is Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. So this is a horror film that centers on a group of YouTubers who are filming a haunted investigation in this infamous haunted asylum live on Halloween night. And what What starts out as a seemingly normal night investigation like all of the others becomes an absolute nightmare. The final act of this film is insane. It is batshit crazy, and it becomes like almost like a fever dream where these characters are experiencing so much stuff that's absolutely horrifying. Then we have the last footage of Leah Sullivan. I love this little indie gem. It centers on a young woman. She's a college student. Her name is Leah Sullivan, and she's doing a documentary for her film class on this mysterious series of murders that happened in a home in her hometown. So she goes back to her hometown to document the house and investigate people close to the case and really try to uncover what truly happened. I love this one because it's set in Massachusetts, where I'm from, and I love the main character. She just feels so real and genuine, and she has that final girl quality to her. Then we have Death of a Vlogger. So this centers on an ambitious vlogger who wants to become famous, and he begins documenting paranormal experiences that he's having around his home. And then one of his videos of his experiences blows up on the internet, and he faces a lot of criticisms from people on the web. It just shows how dark the internet can be, and there's a lot of questions of, is it really happening, or is this vlogger just making it up? And it's just really well done. Then we have Grave Encounters from 2011. This is one of the best, I think. So this centers on a crew of a Paranormal Activity show, kind of like Ghost Adventures. They enter this asylum. They're investigating it for their show. Something happens over the course of the night where these crew members begin to experience real paranormal activity, and the shoot ends up becoming their final episode. Then we have Lake Mungo, which I believe you need to go into this movie with certain expectations, because a lot of people hype this up as being the most terrifying film they've ever watched. This film is shot like a documentary where it's centered on this young woman who died, and they're interviewing her family about their grief and how they begin experiencing paranormal activity following their daughter's death, and they believe it's her trying to contact them. So it's a really slow burn film that's more like a character study than anything, where we're really learning about this character who died and the trauma that she experienced and her relationship with her family, and the film is really dissecting those relationships between the family. And yes, there are some really terrifying moments in this film that come towards the end. It's terrifying and filled with dread and sadness in its real life storyline of this family experiencing a tragic, horrific event. Then we have Ty West's The Sacrament. Oh, Barlow has joined us for the fun. Do you want to come here, dude? You want to say hi to the people? I know you really watch these videos for Barlow. Oh, he doesn't give a fuck. He's like, peace out, bitch. So The Sacrament centers on these journalists who travel to this community called Eden Parish to document their friend who is meeting his sister who lives in this community. And she basically is touring them around the community and introducing them to all the locals and their leader, who is seemingly charismatic and cool, but then he reveals his true intentions and the experience becomes an absolute nightmare. So this one is very reminiscent of the Jonestown Massacre, and it's a really horrific true crime story, and I think this film did an excellent job at capturing that dread and horror. And it's just horrifying because I've watched documentaries on the Jonestown Massacre, and the imagery in The Sacrament is just so scary because it's so real. Then we have Hell House LLC. So this centers on a group of people who buy a house, a hotel, and they renovate it to turn it into a haunted attraction. But the thing is, it's really haunted. Then we have As Above, So Below. So this centers on a group of explorers who are searching for something. I believe it's the Sorcerer's Stone. They enter the catacombs, which are underneath the city of Paris, in search of it, and it starts out okay at first, and then it becomes a nightmare. And that's the best way I can describe this movie. It's a nightmare. They're underground, they're trying to find their way out, and things are just getting worse. I struggled to breathe during this. It's almost like a fever dream, the stuff that's happening, and it's like they're going into the pits of hell. Then we have Willow Creek, which centers on a guy who wants to uncover Bigfoot. He's traveling with his girlfriend, and they go to the town of Willow Creek, where Bigfoot is well known. I believe believe that's where the popular Bigfoot footage came from. So it starts off fun. He's interviewing locals about Bigfoot and their experiences and sightings, and they go to the Bigfoot Museum, and then they venture into the woods to camp out and try to see if they can catch Bigfoot on camera themselves, and it gets scary for them from there. I love this one because I love Bigfoot, and it's like watching a real Bigfoot documentary. The museums that they visit are real, and the legend of Bigfoot, they incorporate real stories into the film. So I love that stuff. I geek out on that stuff. But when they go into the woods and they're actually investigating, it's so unsettling and scary to me because they're out in the elements in the middle of nowhere. There's no one there to help them, and there's just so much danger. And there's a particular scene involving a tent that I thought was so well done, but you can't see what's going on, you can only hear it, and I just envision myself in that situation and how I would react. I would be terrified. So I think this is a well done found footage, and especially if you love Bigfoot. Next we have The House is October Built. This is another Halloween haunt found footage horror movie. So this centers on a group of people who are traveling to different haunts around the world to document for Halloween, and they want to do more extreme haunts. So think like McCamey Manor or whatever, where this isn't just a regular horror experience. It's insane. Like, they'll kidnap you, they'll do horrible things to you, and you kind of sign up for that, which I don't understand. I would never be into that. They do find this underground haunt that they're looking for, and they get more than they bargained for, and it's absolutely horrifying. This one is another one where I just felt so uncomfortable and claustrophobic, and there's just an insane sense of dread, and you're just questioning, why would anybody put themselves into this situation? So it's not a fun experience, but I like watching it every Halloween. It's just intense. Then we have Wreck. So Wreck centers on a camera crew who are basically filming an average everyday segment on a group of emergency workers in their element. And then the emergency workers get called to this apartment building, and the camera crew follows them. And when they get to this apartment building, they learn that some insane stuff is happening, and they get locked inside. I surprisingly have never watched this one. I've only seen Quarantine, the American remake of it, which I actually love. I think that's a really scary movie. So I think it's about time I finally watch the original. Next is Troll Hunter. So this is about a group of students who are investigating a series of what they believe are bear killings, but they figure out that there's actually a bigger mystery and something a lot more dangerous at play. Then they start documenting this hunter that they learn is actually a troll hunter. And these trolls are not like tiny trolls that you envision under a bridge. These trolls are giants. And I think this one is so much fun and inventive and creative, and I love it. I think it's perfect. So then we have The Den, which is kind of an internet horror where it's shot through a camera on a computer through a webcam. This centers on a young woman who is studying the habits of webcam users. What starts out as normal and seemingly safe becomes horrifying. She realizes that she's not safe at all, and she witnesses a brutal murder, and then she and her friends become a target of a killer. Next we have The Conspiracy. This is about two filmmakers who are making a documentary on conspiracies, popular conspiracies, and then they meet this guy who talks about this ancient cult-like group, this dangerous secret society, and they begin to investigate, and it is crazy. Like, they discover that this cult is real, and they get pulled into this world, and I think this one is really effective and well done. Next is Digging Up the Marrow. This is from director Adam Green, and it's kind of shot like a mockumentary style found footage. The story centers on Adam Green, who encounters a fan who claims that he has evidence of real monsters. So Adam Green meets with this guy, and he decides to document this experience, and I love this one so much because I think it's just fun. I love the creativity behind this, the idea of real monsters, and that he used an artist to create these really unique monsters that we've never seen before, and they're just so cool. Next is They're Watching. So this is kind of a comedy horror about a crew of this home improvement series, kind of like something you would see on HGTV, who travel to this Eastern European village to follow up with one of their previous guests. And when they get there, they uncover the secrets of this community, and they also kind of piss them off. Next is Butterfly Kisses. So Butterfly Kisses centers around this filmmaker who discovers this box of tapes from these students who were trying to capture this urban legend on film called the Peeping Tom. So this guy claims that the footage he found is real, and he is setting out to prove it. So the film crew is following this guy as he sets out to prove that the footage he found is real. It's a little confusing, but we actually get to see the footage that he found, and it's really creepy. The whole Peeping Tom urban myth is really cool. It's one of those scenarios where if you see him, it's too late and you can never unsee him, and he'll basically haunt you until you're dead. And the whole concept wrapped around this of this guy finding this footage and dissecting the found footage genre is really cool to me, and it felt very meta. It's just a really unique concept that I thought was done very well. Next up is Savageland. So this is one that I have not seen yet. This will be a first time watch for me, but it's always recommended to me, and it's supposedly really good. This is about a small town near the Arizona-Mexico border that is basically wiped out overnight, and there's only one survivor, and suspicion falls on them. Next is the Borderlands, aka The Final Prayer. This is about the Vatican, who sends some investigators into this little village community in England to investigate a local church. They're basically experiencing paranormal activity. So these guys go out there to try to determine if the activity is real, if it's religious related, or if the people are making this up. This movie has one of the most disturbing climaxes I have ever watched in my life, and it was so shocking, and it's just a downer, man. It is so bleak. I will never get those images out of my head. Next is Deadware. So this is a movie from this year that I really fell in love with. It centers on two friends who are communicating via web chat. It's set in 1999, which I love. I love the nostalgia, and they are invited to play this weird horror game. And it's one of those point and click horror games. So we watch them as they play the game, and something sinister is waiting for them at the end of the game. What I think works about this movie is, first of all, the nostalgia factor for me. That just warmed my cold dead heart. I love seeing the webcam and hearing the noises of the dial-up computer. It just makes my flesh tingle. I am brought back to those days where I would spend hours online, and I miss the dial-up. It just gets me going. But also the characters in this are really well done. Like, they feel real, like they're really friends, and they're enjoyable, like they're not annoying, and I actually cared about them and what was happening with them and uncovering their friendship. Also, the point and click game, I love that. I felt like I was watching streamers on YouTube play a horror game, and it just brings me back to those days of watching my brother play horror games, basically. Next is Incantation. This is a horror movie that scared me in many ways. So this centers on a woman who, she experienced some traumatic events when she kind of did some taboo shit back in the day. She entered this temple and she got cursed from it, or so she believes. Spent some time dealing with her mental health, and now she's feeling better. So she is taking back custody of her daughter, and she's documenting the experience of welcoming her daughter back. However, when she brings her daughter back, the weird paranormal stuff starts happening, and this woman believes it's because of the curse. We watch as things just kind of escalate. This movie has kind of like an interactive quality to it, where the main character, she needs to say an incantation, and she invites you as the viewer to help her to make the incantation stronger. And when she's saying this stuff, she's like saying the words. When it's flashing up on the screen and the words are coming, you're like, I'm not saying it. I don't want to say it. But she's like, you don't even have to say it. You can just think it and it will work. And I'm like, no, because it just makes you feel like it's real and it's really happening. And oh my God, is this incantation real? It added an extra layer of fear for me, and I thought it was so well done. Next is Noroi. The Curse? I don't know how to say it, okay? I'm sorry. But this is basically very similar to Incantation, but it came out years prior. So this centers on a paranormal investigator who is is investigating a series of paranormal events that are occurring all around the city that seemingly are connected. And lastly, I'm gonna recommend Creep. This is the Mark Duplass psychological thriller about a filmmaker. He takes this job to record this guy in his final days because he's been diagnosed with some type of cancer where he's gonna die before his kid is born. So he wants to leave some tapes behind for him so he knows who his father is. All seems well, this guy seems normal and cool, and then as the day progresses, he realizes that there's something wrong with this guy. It's got that slow build and dread where you just know something horrible is going to happen, and Mark Duplass is great. He manages that very inviting personality mixed with being a little creepy very well, so you can't tell if you actually like him or you're afraid of him. It was really hard to narrow it down to 31 because there are so many good found footage horror movies, so please let me know what found footage horror movies you plan on watching this month and what movies you think should have made my list down in the comments below. And please recommend me any found footage horror movies that are more obscure, lesser known found footage horror movies that you think I'll love. I will also link to my lesser known found footage horror recommendations for you there. I hope you have a happy Halloween, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye.